Hello, everyone. Thank you for checking out another video on either my Facebook Live, which is the first time for me, or on YouTube, which is the second time. So this is pretty new stuff. But today I have Mr. John Doyle, who's best known for his comedy.
In Germany, though, unfortunately.
In Germany, so in English, not as funny. But in Germany, he's also a voice actor. He's also my cousin. Right. So that's why we're interviewing so intimately today.
Exactly.
But yeah, so hello,
we're getting
John.
it done. Hey, Joe.
How are you?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
A little tired.
He's going back to Germany today.
Going back to Germany tonight, and a little tired, but ate a lot.
Ate a lot.
Ate too much, but I always eat too much when I go to the States.
It's the American way.
But it's funny when you're in the States and you eat too much, you're kind of like, I'm still skinny, right?
Compared to everybody else.
Yeah, and then when you land on a plane in Germany, people are looking at you like, who's that fat guy? But that's all cliche stuff.
But that's good.
Yeah. But
so John,
I feel,
this is going to be on my YouTube channel and my Facebook page.
Right.
And the whole point of the YouTube and Facebook page is to show my journey building a career as a voice actor.
Okay.
So your main gig is a comedian, but you do a lot of voice acting.
Right.
But I thought it would be really cool to join those two and to get your perspective on putting humor into voice acting or putting humor into comedy, or what's your process going through that. But before that, why don't you introduce yourself and tell people a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, I'm American, and I'm from New Jersey, and I've been living in Germany for the last 25 years, so almost half my life. So you got to do the math.
Yeah.
To see how old.
It's about 75.
Exactly. That's what I feel right now, but because of the food and stuff. But I've been doing too much food. But I've been doing comedy for the last 20 years in Germany. Stand-up comedy was kind of new to Germany 20 years ago when I started. And for the first 15 years, I was doing it part-time. I was working as a journalist at a radio station. And the last 5 years, I've been just doing it on its own because I've been making enough to quit my day job, so to speak. The first 15 years, it was sort of almost like a hobby, but now it's...
You worked in radio, right, for a little while?
I worked in radio for 15 years at Radio Deutsche Welle in Cologne, Germany. And I worked for the English service of Deutsche Welle Radio, and I did, quote unquote, serious stuff, news, politics, economic news, cultural news, that sort of stuff. And and that gets depressing after a while if you're kind of an, empathetic, caring individual, because every day there's just there's a disaster, man. And then you're noticing that the disaster is competing with your disaster, right? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like you're coming into work and you get like neck pain, and you want to talk with your colleagues at the radio station about neck pain. And then you turn on the computer and you see like genocide somewhere. And then you can't talk about your neck pain because you're thinking people are going to be thinking, what a jerk. Yeah. He's complaining about his neck pain, and there's child soldiers, that sort of stuff. So what I'm saying is I had to go into comedy to be able to not have the comparison. It was basically easier to be a jerk on stage in comedy than it was as a journalist, because people are like, man, John, there was like nothing you could have as a journalist, like in terms of your pain you're bringing to work, that would make the people interested in hearing about your pain, unless you had like brain tumors. And then it'd be like, yeah, but it's not as bad as being a child soldier and, like burning down a whole village. So even in that case.
He's really starting off this interview with a positive. Thank you. Keep going.
But what I discovered, and this is maybe relevant for the three of you guys out there.
75. I don't know how to check if anyone's watching.
We got a lot. We got a lot.
I think we just hit 3 million. Wow.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Nice.
No, I think that was 3.
Okay.
The other thing is the battery life.
Battery life.
But what I found about what I really liked about, what being a journalist helped me with was finding a connection to the world, right? Because prior to when I was a journalist, I thought the world was just my world. And when I went to journalism, the world became, of course, bigger, because I had to like find out where Nigeria was, and where, the Czech Republic was, and where that sort of stuff was. And so that kind of expanded my world. And I didn't know the difference between Sunni Muslims and Shiite Muslims, or Catholic people from Northern Ireland and Protestant people from Northern Ireland. I just thought everybody was, drinking alcohol in the pub and, basically
Pretty
being friends
pretty close.
with
But,
one another, but they were in separate pubs, and they
right.
were,
That's
you
the
know,
difference.
and and so that gave me an exposure to the different, to
More
the,
serious world.
also to the complexity of the world, that it just wasn't, this group and that group and that group and that group, but it was this group and that group and that group and that group and that
Yeah.
group and that group and that group and that group. And the thing that you learn as you sort of like see the world is the thing that you learn is that there are really good people and really,
You can
assholes
curse. Go
basically
ahead.
in every color and every religion. It's like, that's when you discover, you can't say, oh, that's so typical this or typical that, or because you discover there's a brilliant person next to an idiot, next to an illiterate, next to a very friendly illiterate, next to a friendly illiterate, short fat guy. There's what you discover is there's everything out there.
I'm as lost as people watching.
No, but I'm trying to be clear. This is as clear as I could possibly be. But what I'm saying is, you discover that there's so much nuance, and like people like to see the world in black and white, and I don't think that that's the appropriate way of seeing the world, because I think.
Well, you've learned how to take that really serious stuff that you were talking about on the radio as a journalist, and found the humor in it. And
right, I
put it
found
on
the humor in it,
stage.
and part of the reason why I found the humor in it, and this is true with a lot of comedians, is that they're looking for a way to process it without becoming an alcoholic. They're looking for a way to deal with the harshness of life without like being too harsh towards themselves, whether it be with drugs or alcohol or or any of that sort of stuff. So most comedians I know are actually pretty serious people. And most, if you talked probably to Dave Chappelle, and you talk to Chris Rock, or you talk to Louis C.K. or Bill Burr, I think that you would find that they're pretty serious people who think about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But what they do is they have a unique perspective and an honesty, at least from their perspective, and a take on the way they see the world. They're not saying they have a corner on the market on truth, but they're saying at least they have the balls to say, at least this is my truth. This is what I experience. My truth in a kind of subjective, sort of semi/subjective, objective manner. So so I can really appreciate that. And so like the comedy was to me like a natural flow from the journalism.
Yeah.
And the comedy, like for you guys and like for voice work, finding the comedy in situations is kind of finding the to me the reality in situations, right? And finding the comedy is about finding the contradiction,
right?
Finding the foibles, finding the weakness, but not making fun of the weakness, but embracing the weakness, or embracing the diversity, or the being inclusive, right? And
really quickly,
I find it to be the best way for me to express myself professionally.
Yeah.
I feel more authentic as a comedian expressing a truth than I ever did as a journalist expressing a truth.
You're seeing the humor in it.
Yeah, and I'm also seeing the truth. I feel like I'm almost more truthful and more authentic, exaggerating the truth, as opposed to reporting the truth through my own sort of either liberal or conservative or sort of mainstream pair of glasses.
Yeah.
Right. So but again, that's a subjective thing. I feel more truthful in this format. And what Chris Rock always says about stand-up, he says, or comedy in general, he says, and I believe this to be true myself, he says comedy is truth plus pain. Right? The truth combined with pain, and then you get to good comedy. So if he's talking about racism, he's not making stuff up. He doesn't need to make up stuff. He has to look and see what he sees as the truth, and where there's pain involved. Pain doesn't have to be physically painful. You're being shot at.
Yeah.
It could be you feel sad, you feel hurt emotionally, you feel left out emotionally, you feel incompetent emotionally. And most of us feel pain all the time. I'm too heavy, I'm too skinny,
We just don't talk
I'm
about
too
it.
pimply, I'm too unintelligent, I'm too provincial, I'm too, there are people who might be Hispanic and they're saying I'm too Hispanic, or I'm too black, or I'm too. Michael Jackson had this need partially maybe to, there was always the controversy. Was he bleaching? Was
Change
he
what he looked
trying
like.
to, he was an African-American kid and he was a 50-year-old white man almost.
Right.
And I think part of that had to do probably with skin problems that he's had his whole life.
Yeah.
But I think with a lot of people, I remember reading an article in the African-American community, there's a bit of a controversy over with African-American women straightening their hair. And if you strengthen your hair, there's criticism from some parts of the African-American community saying you're trying to be too white, right? Michelle Obama, I think, caught a little bit of heat when she straightened out her hair, and people were saying this isn't the natural, and she, So I think what I'm saying here in terms of pain is that I think people are often unconsciously having a hard time dealing with their pain. Right. And what comedy does, and this is why comedy is so important, and humor in society, is that comedy is like a vent. Comedy, when you laugh, it releases tension. It releases endorphins. Comedy is like, I don't want to go into a porn direction here, but comedy is like an orgasm. Comedy is basically like the muscles are clenching and there's a release. And when you do a show and 200 people are sitting there watching and they're all laughing at the same time, there's so much energy and it's really awesome. The only bad thing about that is when the show is over and you want to go back to your life. It's so hard to go back to your life because you're in this like, and then you go back to the hotel and there's nobody in your room with you but you, right? So you got to like stand in front of the mirror and go like, which.
But what I think is so cool about comedy, and what I'm trying to learn from you, and what I think other voice actors can learn from comedians and you, is that when you're a comedian, you have to know your audience. We were talking earlier about different shows that he does. In Germany, he goes to carnival shows where it's a different type of audience than an older community in Germany. So you have to really know your audience and know the right jokes to say to that audience. And in voice acting, you have to think about the person you're talking to rather than just talk into a mic without any emotion.
So that's why, like, whenever I do a comedy show, or when I do, like, not really as much a comedy show, but like a corporate event, if I do a corporate event like for BMW or something, I always ask how many people are going to be there. How clean should it be? Usually for corporate events, they want it to be clean. They don't want dirty material. They don't want you to swear. They don't want you to talk about body parts while swearing, all that stuff, they don't want. And also, are these people who would necessarily go to comedy? How old is the audience? I would sometimes ask. Oh, actually, I would always ask. How much of the audience speaks German or speaks English? I do my comedy in German, but I've been to shows before. I've been to shows before where the people have said 90% of the audience doesn't speak German. And they told me that 5 minutes before the show. And I'm like, wait a minute, my whole show's in German. I'm doing it in German. Nobody's laughing. And the guy who booked me for good money is saying, he's not so funny. And I'm like, duh, if you told me beforehand that 90% of the audience that I have to entertain doesn't speak the language I'm speaking with them in. Jay Leno said this one time. He was at the Playboy Club in Las Vegas or something doing a show, and it completely bombed. And then they told him afterwards there were 100, I think, Norwegian tourists who spoke no English. And he did a half hour and bombed and thought he was awful. And he wasn't. He was just the way he always is, which was really good. But they didn't understand the language. So you got to like figure out
who your audience,
like the parameters. You got to, and you also got to test when you're doing it. how far can I go, right?
Mhm.
Can I go Dave Chappelle with them, or can I go
Seinfeld or something.
Seinfeld with them, right? Because
Mhm.
Seinfeld is
No
much cleaner.
curses and
There's no cursing, there's no sex, there's no nudity, there's no, you know, uh, that sort of stuff. You know what I'm saying? I was going to keep
keep
going,
going.
but no
So how do
exchange
you
of body
think
flow, that sort of thing. But
so how do
yeah,
you think when you are thinking about a show that you're doing for comedy,
right.
do you ever do that when you're doing a voiceover gig? What do you ever think about who the audience is and how to prepare and how to get the right sound for that particular audience? Do you do that?
Well, the thing is, if you have a good director when
Mm-hmm.
you're doing a voiceover gig or something like that, they'll tell you, they'll give you specifics. If you don't get specifics from them, ask them for specifics. Do you want a younger sounding voice? Do you want a friendly sounding voice? Do you want a sexy
So
sounding
it's
voice?
okay to ask
It's
questions.
okay to ask questions. Do you want a fast, excited voice? Do you want more of a lower, bass type of,
Mm-hmm.
experienced voice? Oh, there it is, it's back again.
Okay.
And that sort of stuff. So if they don't give you the information, ask them for the information,
Mm-hmm.
right? That I think is a really important thing.
Yeah.
And also ask them the general question, what's this for?
Yeah.
Is this for online? Is this for a TV commercial? Is this for radio?
Mm-hmm.
Is this for an in-house, training, DVD or
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like that, right? What's this for? I oftentimes ask, how fast do you want me to
Mm-hmm.
voice it? Do you want me to say, hey, welcome to the show today, what's going on, blah, blah, blah? Oftentimes, the people hearing your video in English,
Mm-hmm.
I do my voice work in English, are not native speakers in English. So they want you to be slower in your pronunciation, or no, slower in your speed,
Mm-hmm.
and also clear in your pronunciation.
Yeah.
So they don't want you to say, hey, what's up, how you doing, BMW drivers? I know BMW Ultimate Drive Machine. They don't want that.
It's a more
They want you
distinguished
to be,
audience.
welcome to BMW,
Mm-hmm.
the car, the legend, BMW. They want, you have to basically get the information.
Because
Usually
you're
you
thinking
can,
of who you're talking to.
yeah. And also, like with anything else, what's very good is to watch commercials on TV
Mm.
and to see what voices go good with what products.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you watch Wimbledon on ESPN, it's no surprise
Not
that
a
you're
Southern
seeing a
guy.
lot of Rolex commercials, you're seeing a lot of Mercedes-Benz commercials, and that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If you're watching fishing on TV, right, you're not seeing many Rolex commercials,
Right.
because the guys fishing are afraid the Rolex is going to, fall in the water and be eaten by the fish.
Of course.
Right? Or the Mercedes is going to get stolen while they're,
Fishing.
fishing. You can't put the shotgun in the back of the Mercedes. That's
Right.
kind of stupid.
It's a lot. Yeah.
It's kind of odd. There's no gun rack in the SLK, it's, or maybe in the States there is.
In the United States, that's an add-on service.
That's an add-on for each car. Do you want that with the gun and the bullet, or something like that? But so
ask questions.
ask questions of the director, and also watch TV commercials to learn. See TV commercials as a free training ground.
So mimic what you hear on the radio or TV.
Well, try and learn something. If you notice, you'll probably notice in premium products, it's a slower, more distinguished voice.
Mm-hmm.
In products that they're marketing to young people, it's a, hey, the iPhone voice,
just like a friend,
is
hey,
always a
how are
friend.
you?
Is like your voice.
Yeah.
The Mercedes-Benz would be probably, my voice would be too young for the Mercedes-Benz. They'd
Mhm.
find somebody with an even deeper voice, and that sort of thing. So also, like, from the standpoint of what's my voice good for, right? Like, where am I? Do I sound quirky? Do I sound friendly? Do I sound intellectual? Do I sound serious? And you can kind of also market yourself for those products, right?
I think it's hard as you're starting, and even as I'm starting now, it's I have to keep reminding myself to try to find my thing, what I'm really good at, and focus on it, rather than say, oh, I can do everything. I can be the announcer. I can do the live announce. I can do the characters. I can do all this stuff. Maybe focus on one thing, and really, well, when you're starting out, you don't know what that is, but you have to find what it is.
Because you're searching for it.
Yeah.
But as you sort of find what it is, it's better to be good at a few things than kind of, semi-good at everything,
Right.
because semi-good might not get you the job.
Yeah.
Right. So, so that's something, to look at. And the television commercials are, like I said, a good training ground.
Mm-hmm.
The people you see in an iPhone commercial, a Mercedes commercial, a Chevy Impala commercial, are the Champions League, are the Real Madrids and Arsenal Londons and, Bayern Munichs, of the voicing world, and you can see them and hear them for free.
Right.
So use that as a resource.
Yeah.
Go online and YouTube iPhone commercial. YouTube, you don't even have to do it on a TV.
Right.
You could do it on your smartphone.
Right.
You know, YouTube, Android handheld, or something like that, or just to see the commercials and to hear the voices, and then to ask yourself, where do I fit in? If I was going to be,
because those are the guys that are getting paid the top thing for
those are the guys who are getting paid. Right. You need kind of role models, just like kids who watch a baseball game and say, I want to be like Reggie Jackson, or I want to be like Derek Jeter, or I want to be like Roger Federer in tennis, or Rafa Nadal in tennis, and you emulate. You know, my son wanted to be like Leighton Hewitt, you know, the tennis player from Australia, who was the best in the world for a while. And whenever he made a good shot, he used to yell, "Come on!" And when my son played in the beginning of his tennis career, he yelled, "Come on!" when he hit a winner. Yeah. You know, he didn't yell so often because, you know,
he didn't have any winners.
No, but he hit winners. He hit winners. A few more than I did.
A little bit more.
Yeah, but he had better technique. You know, which I paid for, by the way. So
with voiceover and comedy.
With voiceover and comedy. I love him. Shout out.
Joshua, Yoshka.
No.
So I think you have to find your voice, right? So find your voice. And when you do a lot of jobs, I think some people still go to studio. Like any voiceover job you do you work from home, or do you go to studios? What do you typically do?
I oftentimes go to studios. I mean, I'm at the point with my voiceovers where the studio will call me and say, you start this because almost full, it's okay. The studio will call me and say, are you available on Friday for a half hour to do this video for this? Yeah. And then my question is always, you sound like a money grubbing jerk, but my question is always, before we go any further, what's the budget for this? I don't say, what do I get? Because that sounds a little bit crappy. I say, what's the budget? And that's a nicer way of saying, how much how much am I actually going to be getting? Right. And if they say to me, well, it's BMW and the budget is $100, I'm like, you know. If they tell me it's the guy's lawnmower company around the corner and it's for a little video that he's setting up a website, it's $100, I'm more willing to sort of say, you know, I know that guy around the corner. So that sort of thing. So you really want to find out who it is who wants you and what it's for, because a TV commercial pays more than a radio commercial. A radio commercial pays more than an online pays more than
offline
porn that you shoot with your iPhone. You know?
Yeah, dubbing porn. That's
dubbing.
I don't think I'm gonna get into that one.
I think they call it sexting. The young people of today, they don't text, they sext. Yeah, I've never done it before. No one's.
Yeah, it takes two people, I think, to do that.
Yeah, I've like taped myself and taped. I'm aging, right?
Oh,
I'm aging. Yeah.
So changing the topic a little bit.
Yeah.
Before, I forgot to mention it when we first started, but
comedy. But no, what I wanted to say about voicing, you can use comedy, and like with Snapchat and stuff like that, you can use comedy. You can find the humor in everything, and then just start thinking about what kind of voice would be good for that humor. Yeah. Like the good thing about comedy is you have a license to exaggerate reality. Yeah. So somebody asks you how you feeling today, and you say, I'm not as fat as I was yesterday, and you do it kind of in a voice that's sort of self-deprecating and ironic, maybe. and but
it has to be a little bit true.
It has to be a little bit true. It has to be a little bit true. And what's also good in comedy is it's much easier to make fun of other people if you're willing to make fun of yourself.
Right. You can't just make fun of people and never.
No, because then you'd be the jerk. Right. But if you make fun of yourself first, Louis C.K. makes fun of himself. Bill Burr will do a whole routine about people are idiots, and then he'll say at the end of it, "What do I know? I don't even read. I'm an idiot.
So people will accept
what do I know? I'm just like an average guy who's like talking shit and getting paid for it. So fuck me. But that endears him to the audience, and Louis C.K. that endears him to the audience. Yeah. Chappelle does the same thing. Yeah. It endears him to the audience. You have to be willing to make fun of yourself. You have to have enough confidence to not really care if you say something stupid, because, like in the grand scheme of things, it's only like a deduction of $5 from your $1 million bank account. So you're like, all right, withdraw $5 and that sort of thing. you have to kind of like develop a certain confidence. But if
Yeah.
you're noticing that, you know, people are like, every time you tell a joke or like shutting down and going home,
Maybe comedy is not your
maybe
thing.
comedy's not your thing. You know, usually people who do comedy, people are like, hey, you're kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, really? And then you go out on stage and you bomb.
Right.
And then you're like, man,
Then you
next
stop.
time I'm going to bring those friends who think I'm funny to the audience, you know. But the good thing about comedy and voicing is that it opens you up to more voice possibilities. Because the thing I notice about commercials in America compared to Germany, where I live,
Lives in Germany.
there's a ton of humor-related voicing in America. So
Like what? Like voices or something?
I'm talking about voices. I'm talking about average people. I'm talking about what the fuck you're doing. I'm talking about there's much more desire for humor in the in the American society and culture and popular culture. This is what we're talking about, TV, popular culture, than there is in Germany. So, you know, if you can discover the funny part of you, you can work more.
Yeah.
Because America, just turn on a TV and watch the commercials. And it seems to me that a large number of those commercials are funny, quirky, silly, you know, and not just straight informational, you know? So if you can develop your inner, you know, I was walking down the street today and I saw this guy and the guy was like, whoa, he's pretty hot. But he looked at me and he was thinking, she's pretty not. And that's when I decided to get on the slim fast, you know, type of thing. Yada, yada, yada.
I love that you were a woman for that commercial.
I was the woman for that commercial. You know, the person for Bart Simpson.
Oh, Bart Simpson is a woman.
As a woman, right. So what I'm saying is comedy gives you the license to be goofy, right? Just like learning a foreign language gives you a license to be stupid, because you could always say, hey, I'm just learning language.
Yeah, everybody knows you're going to mess up.
Everybody knows you're going to mess up. And if you're stupid, actually, a foreign language is a good thing to learn, because you could always sort of say, no, I'm not stupid. I'm just learning the foreign language.
So did you know any German? I know this, but did you know any German when you went to Germany before you started?
A little bit, a little bit. But what I discovered was that comedy was for me a good tool for learning a foreign language. And I think for your viewers out there, comedy is a good tool for getting a job.
The two of them, yeah.
Getting a job. Yeah, but so what? This is where we start. They talk to people. You pass it around.
Yeah, tell your friends about this show. It's going to be huge.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I'm also, you know, in the process. I'm trying to grow my business. You know, this is my level of fame in Germany to people in America. I'll tell you what my level of fame in Germany is. A group of people are walking towards me. And one guy in the group says, hey,
I know that guy.
You're that, wait a minute. You're that Brad Pitt lookalike, right? You're that guy. And I'm like, no. I get that all the time. No, the people say to me, you're that American guy. You're that comedian guy, right? You're that comedian guy. They don't know my name.
That's because you build your brand. You're wearing the hat.
My brand, I got the hat, and you're the comedian guy. I made the Yankee hat more famous than a Yankee can. You know, I got that from, Jay-Z got that from me, and the Yankees got it from Jay-Z. You know what I mean? I made the Yankee hat more famous than the Yankee can.
Yeah.
He got that from me.
Yeah, right.
Well, he saw me.
And then he wore it.
And he made it.
He didn't know we'd be doing this
because I was wearing this before he did that song.
Yeah.
And did that lyric.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he saw me, John Doyle comedy on YouTube.
So should I title this interview John Doyle original inspiration for Jay-Z?
Jungle where dreams are made of this stuff.
So find the humor in
find your own voice, find the humor in everyday life. We went to Target this morning and we walked around Target. And they're Target in French. And we found a million funny things to normal things that people walked by in Target.
Right.
And didn't laugh or quirk that were cracking us up. And we don't feel like we're like so amazingly, incredibly talented that that's not an accessibility level for at least 5 to 10 other people, watching today globally, So what we're saying here is find your inner clown, your inner comedian, let that person come out, your inner funny persona, and try and use it for voiceover, because a lot of the voiceover, to be redundant here, a lot of the voiceover work is for quirky personalities. Sexy and resident is the BMW or Mercedes
Right, there's
commercial.
very little
Driving
announcer
down a
talking at
country
you.
road, or the guy, who does the movie trailers, It was a cool, dark
Don Lefferts,
evening
yeah.
on Friday, and then something happened, and then you get,
Right.
Dave Chappelle, who what's it? What's up, motherfuckers? And then the voice,
Yeah.
will this work in reality?
Uh-huh.
And then him, I don't know, motherfuckers, and then it keeps going. But you have to find, kind of your sort of comic, little comedian in you. And the little comedian is usually there where things contradict.
Yeah.
If you put on a lot of weight, you could make a joke about that by saying, man, I lost a lot of weight this week while I was visiting my family in America, 20 grams. You could say that in Germany because they do the grams. In America, it'd be like, what's a gram? What's a gram? Well, a gram's like something you snort up your nose,
Different.
It's a little different. But, basically, if you make fun of yourself and do contradictions, well, I'm getting in good shape, I'm now only 200 pounds overweight as opposed to 250 pounds overweight, type of
progress.
thing. You can do that, your mom did a presentation and she introduced some comedy to it, and it relieved the tension in the audience, and the audience, and that is then more memorable. So if you can find your inner comedian, you can really make people's lives more fun, because a lot of people go through life and it's hot and humid and assholes all over the place. And if you can just, make them smile on the way to making them laugh, they'll really appreciate it.
Yeah.
People appreciate it.
And what do you think about, so it's not easy, but you can do that with comedy when you have a stage to interact with. You can do that for a voiceover job when you have the director sitting there. But what can you do when you are, besides getting out of your studio, if you have a home studio with your equipment, you're by yourself, you're reading some copy, and you're trying to get into that character and relate to the viewer, what can you do to bring humor into that read or to make it seem more realistic if you're by yourself?
Well, what you could do if you're by yourself, you could read the same copy in different voices. You can read the same copy as an old man, as an old grumpy man, as an old grumpy woman, as a tense, grumpy. You can just basically throw in the different emotions, throw in the different adjectives, and experiment with it. How you doing? How you doing, man? Hey, how you doing? Changing the intonation, changing the pitch, changing the speed. You can kind of, by doing that, you can be, like the Mo Riviera of the New York Yankees. Basically, the people are tuned into you because they don't know what's coming next. Rivera. What did I say? Riviera? Yeah, that was the other. Yeah. But yeah, experiment with different voices.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a highly articulate older woman. I'm going to be a working class young man. I'm going to be a bitchy asshole teenager. I'm going to be, and to record it and then play it back and listen to it.
Whatever that voice means to you, you'll see.
And you'll see. And if you like it, what you'll probably discover is that a certain amount of truth resonates there. And if you don't like it, what you oftentimes don't like is you think, it sounds phony. It sounds like it's conjured up. It sounds, it doesn't sound authentic. It doesn't sound honest.
Yeah.
Because you're just throwing it out there. But don't, despair when that happens. It's a lot of it is trial and error. And that's why they say in theater, or they say in acting, whatever kind of acting, find your voice. They say in comedy, find your voice.
Voice acting. Yeah.
Find your voice and find the meaning. Don't read the words, read the meaning, right? If the meaning is the boy was scared as he was walking down the street, don't say the boy was scared as he was walking down the street. Because why is the stress that way? You're drawing too much attention to the words and you're pulling away from the meaning.
And what you've been saying to me a lot is kind of play the phrases, not the words. So really try to get the message of the script and not necessarily say each word alone.
Exactly.
Try to say the whole,
Exactly. Because your goal isn't entirely just to enunciate. Your goal is to communicate.
right.
And the enunciation is the individual
The
word,
words are
but
less important than
the
the message.
idea is is the whole sentence and not the whole word.
Right.
You know, if you have a problem getting a specific word out, you've got to just practice diction and practice, you know, reading some literature, reading something, picking it up,
101
opening up
names
a
for
page,
babies.
and just reading names, or things like that. Reading Plato's Republic, you know, light reading. I always
These are
pick up
just books I have laying around in my
right.
studio.
I pick up a copy of Plato's Republic, you know, whenever I'm,
Just want to relax.
or the bartender's Bible, or what we got here,
These are
you know,
just the normal mix that I
you
have.
know, or English language. Just pick it. You could pick out a dictionary, but what you want is you want to, for example, you know, you pick up a book. What is critical thinking, right? You pick up a book, you open a page, you go in front of the microphone, and you say, in a normal voices, you know, you're reading. It was nonetheless, if we nonetheless leave science aside now in dealing with the question, what it is to form ideas, we do so not in the proud delusion that we have all the answers, but out of discretion inspired by a lack of knowledge, right? So that's you. Now you could take the same thing and you can do different voices for, this is intellectual, this text. So if you make it less intellectual, it makes it funny because of the juxtaposition of a hard text and a more pedestrian, you know, type of thing. So if you read the same thing and you're practicing your voice work, you know, if we nonetheless leave science aside, now in dealing with the question, what it is to form ideas, we do so not in the proud, it sounds like Tootsie, it sounds like Dustin Hoffman in Tootsie, you know, in the proud delusion that we have all the answers, but out of discretion, inspired by a lack of knowledge, you know. Now, I don't know why I did that voice, but there's probably some deeper meaning why I was like a Southern, you know, confused individual doing it.
Yeah.
And you can discover through just, you know, opening a book and opening a page and say, okay, I'm going to do 5 voices. You can kind of discover your inner silliness.
Yeah.
Because some people would directly go deep. Right. Some people would directly go fast.
Try to do the movie trailer
Some people try to do the movie trailer voice. And you could kind of discover what you'd like to be or where your mentality lies. So it's kind of practice. And don't be too hard on yourself. Like, oh, that wasn't funny.
This is on my store now for sale.
Right. Don't be too hard on yourself, guys, you know, and girls and ladies and gentlemen, you know, don't be too hard. Record stuff, you know, what did, you know, what was it? Was it Einstein or who was it who said 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration, right? No, I think it was Thomas Edison or Albert Einstein. Tesla, I think it was Albert Einstein or Tesla or Derek Jeter. I'm not sure, you know, but really, you got to throw stuff out there, and see basically what sticks. And don't be too critical of yourself, especially at the beginning of your career. Give yourself a break, you know. And if your mom thinks you're awesome, you may be, but you also may not be. It just may be your mom, you know. So get out of the bubble.
Great last word.
Yeah. So get out of the bubble and see if dad or your cousin thinks you're awesome. And if they think you're awesome, you know, then you may be awesome, you know. You may be awesome.
So, John, before we finish, I forgot to say at the beginning of the interview, but if you guys who are watching, probably everyone who's watching doesn't know, but John Doyle is the reason that I discovered voiceover. I went to live with them for a month in Germany for my senior project for Teaneck High School. I don't know how
blame it on me.
So I made it seem like I was doing some educational work, and it actually turned out to help me in my career. But I lived with him for a year, traveled with him to do his comedy shows. And then one day he came and he did.
And the comedy was good, right? Like you went, people laughed, and it was great.
One or two people laughed every once in a while. It was pretty good.
Thanks, Joe.
but
Shout out from Joe Murphy.
So I went to a voice acting job he did for a car company. I don't know what car it was.
Yeah.
It was a BMW commercial or something for I think German audience.
Yeah, or Mercedes, yeah.
And that was the first voiceover job that I ever saw. So I walked in there thinking, yeah, sure, I'll go to this job with you. And I realized that he talked in a mic and he got that message across to the viewer. And that was the first time that I ever realized that this is a possible job that I could do.
Right.
So he's the reason that I realized this is a profession. And here I am, 9 or 8 years later, actually starting this job. So it's really cool to now have him and talking in a more professional way about voice acting and comedy where it started 9 years ago in Germany, just for a job that you did randomly.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah. So with all that said, John, where and how can people get in contact with you if they want to look for you on the internet? Where they go?
I'm on I have a website, John Doyle DE, John Doyle, one word, JOHN DOYLE .de is for Deutschland. It's like .com in the States, you know, John Doyle.de.
Deutschland is Germany.
Yeah, Deutschland is Germany. And I'm on Snapchat.
Yeah,
and you guys, like in America, like I'm on Snapchat, you could learn some German. I do it in English and German, so you can learn some German. I'm on Snapchat and that sort of stuff. And what am I on? John Doyle Comedy.
He's on. What's your YouTube? You're on YouTube.
I'm on.
I'll put a link here.
John Doyle Comedy, and I'm also on YouTube. I'm on. I have a YouTube channel.
What's your YouTube name?
I don't know. My wife set up the channel, so I don't know. I think
wife
it's like
manager.
Yeah, my wife / manager is pretty good because you save on the commission.
Yeah.
It just stays in the family, and you don't have to pay tax.
No prenup.
You know, and you could basically say, "Get to work." You know, we got to make some money. You know, but then she says to me, "Get out of the house. We got to make some money."
Yeah.
You know, so.
So thank you, John. This is awesome.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. I'll link up all your stuff under the
Snapchat,
video.
And I'm also on Facebook, John Doyle.
Yeah.
Snapchat, John Doyle Comedy, johndoyle.de, on the internet, on that World Wide Web.
World Wide Web, I think it's called. Yeah.
And so it'd be cool hearing from you guys.
Yeah. So thank you. Let's do an awkward handshake to end.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Joe.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.